Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more.
Well, got to tell you guys, I'm pretty excited because I'm a big football fan and I'm from Philly. So, first game of the season, go Birds. So I'm pretty excited. Hopefully I won't be distressed after tonight, especially losing to the Cowboys. I don't know if you follow football, Paul.
I haven't followed football since the players started taking a knee during the national anthem. I was like, I'm done. I don't need this. I follow real sports like professional wrestling. That's, everyone knows that the NFL's a work, right? But real sports like professional wrestling, that's where it's at.
Yeah, I watched a lot of professional wrestling when I was younger, and I got away from it. I think when Kane and Undertaker left, those were like my favorite characters. And Dr. Sacco with, was it what was his name?
Mankind with Sacco.
Loved it. But hey, anyway, this is the Drink O'Clock Podcast. I'm your host, and I have the pleasure of having with me Paul Bauer. Now, Paul, you're an author, and
oh, go ahead. No.
And you help men reclaim their power, right? That's like your tagline. But welcome to the show, man.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm an author, podcast host, content creator. I've made it a mission in life to help men level up and get better with women. That's my shtick.
And you know what? We've gone through quite a couple phases, I would think, on this side of the fence, right? Especially with, you had a lot of the stuff with the Me Too movement, which I think, some of it was certainly big time rectified. Thankfully they put what's his face behind bars because he was definitely a serial predator. You have other people. I mean, all the shit with. I mean, Diddy came way later, but you have all that stuff, and I think it got pretty crazy because they were trying to cancel people from like 1950. And it's like, all right, the guy's dead. I mean, just what are you gonna do? Like, anyway, but how do you agree with me there?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about guys like Harvey Weinstein or who's that guy from that 70s show? He got put away.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely not having a good time in prison.
Yeah.
That is for sure. Danny Masterson?
Yeah, Danny Masterson. Yeah, guys like that. Guys like Cosby, like that were like roofing girls' drinks and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I think those guys had what was coming to them, Absolutely.
Now, the way I like to start this show typically is talking a little bit about your background. So walk me through growing up, and what eventually got you to the point where you are now.
Okay. Yeah, you want my Batman origin story. So
I want the origin story, man.
So I was, I would say I was always pretty good with girls. Like when I was in high school, I always had girlfriends. I went to 4 different proms. I lost my virginity when I was at 16 or whatever. And I was always the guy that was had that sniper dating mentality though, right? Where it was like I was always just hyper focused on one girl at a time. Each girl, she was my soulmate. I was going to marry that girl. You know how that happens, right? And so
yeah, I'm kind of emotional type like that as well.
Yeah, well, a lot of us are. It turns out that men are the real idealists. We're the romanticists, and women are more opportunists. And I didn't learn that early in life. We sort of have this idea that it's backwards, that women are the romanticists and men are the opportunists, and it's not the way it actually works. And so I was that guy. I was just running for that white picket fence. I was always trying to be the family man guy, and that carried past high school and into the Navy. When I was 18, I left for the U.S. Navy. I served 4 years, did my time there. And my second year in the Navy, I met my now ex-wife. So I was stationed in San Diego, and she was living out here in Colorado, and I went home on leave, and I met her through some mutual friends, some guys that I went through to high school with. They were going to college with her, and we met at a house party, and she was the only girl at that party. And man, I was smitten with this girl, and she and I spent that whole rest of the week I was on leave hanging out together, and I got her phone number, I got her email address, and we ended up doing this long distance relationship. My first cell phone I ever owned was because of this girl, so that I didn't have to walk across base to the payphone and make phone calls to call this girl. So I went and finally invested and got my own cell phone so I could talk to her all the time. And then we had this long distance relationship for about a year before I convinced her to move out to San Diego. And we moved in together and knew each other in person for about 3 months before we eloped. And I was 20 years old. I wasn't even old enough to drink alcohol at my wedding, right? And so I was 20 years old. She was 3 years older than me. We eloped. And the reason why was because I moved her out there, and then I was getting ready to go on a series of deployments. So I was going to go on a 3-month training exercise, come back for a month, and then be gone for another 6 months on an actual deployment in the Middle East. And I wanted to make sure she was taken care of because, that's our duty as men, right? We've got to make sure that we're the protectors and the providers. And I wanted to make sure that she was taken care of. So I married her so that she would get my government benefits, health care. If something happened to me, she would get my life insurance, and, the government would take care of her if something were to happen to me. And so that was our first year of marriage. I was gone for 9 months of it. I wasn't even around. And luckily, we had a pretty good marriage, I would say, for the first half of it. So we were married for 14 years total, and that first half was pretty good. Then we started having kids, and, things started going downhill. For a lot of people, that's pretty typical, that when you have kids, now all of a sudden you're not lovers anymore. Now you've got other obligations, and now you're a family, and you guys have different values, and you're butting heads over the values and what to teach the kids and stuff like that. And that was our story. And it got to a place where I just hated her, man. Like I just did not like her very much. I would work 17-hour days just to avoid coming home, because I knew that as soon as I pulled in that driveway and walked in that house, I was going to get an earful about what I wasn't doing right. And she was just going to nag me to death. And so I would avoid going home, and I would work extra hours, and I would justify it, right, by saying, oh, I'm just putting food on the table, and I'm paying the bills, and this is my job, right? But really, I just didn't want to be home. And then there was times where I didn't want to sleep with her at night. I would go in my garage and grab a cot and go sleep in my office instead of spending the night with her, because I just didn't like her. But I was that guy that I never would have quit, because both sets of grandparents, they stayed together. My parents, they're still together. They're miserable, but they stayed together. They're coming up on their 50th wedding anniversary. But I thought that's how life was, because that was my paradigm growing up. We learned relationship dynamics from our parents. And, I was basically raised to be Al Bundy. You get married, things are good in the beginning. Yep. You have a couple of kids, and then life is supposed to be miserable for after that. And that's just how life is, right? And so that's how I was just resolved to just be miserable. And thank God in 2014, January 2014, she filed for divorce. She had enough. And it was just like a tremendous weight lifted off my chest, and the biggest problem was, not that she was leaving. It was what's going to happen with the kids and custody of the kids. And I didn't want to have to pay her alimony. So that was our big fight during the separation and the divorce process. But other than that, I was like, good riddance. Like you're going to be some other dude's problems. But like most guys, I thought she was the problem. Right. And so I found myself back on the dating circuit after 15 years of no practice, let myself go. I was 50 pounds overweight at the time. And I just floundered, man. It was a whole new world, new experience. I mean, when I met her, there were no dating apps. And now 70% of people, their relationships start online. And so I'm in this whole new world. The Me Too movement, you mentioned that. The Me Too movement had me not making any bold moves because I was afraid of offending women, right? So I was just walking on eggshells, not making a move. And so I just floundered. I just didn't do a very good job on the dating circuit for the first 11 months until I met a gal that I call a red pill chick on my channel. And she was a little bit of a chubby chaser, and she was really forward. And I needed that at my time in life. And so we went on a date. She basically like attacked me in the parking lot of an Applebee's, just making out with me and stuff. And I immediately fell in love. I was just like, oh, I'm going all in on this girl. And I had that sniper dating mentality, and I went all in on this girl. And I ended up in a relationship with her for 4.5 years that I probably shouldn't have been in. But there were some blessings from that. She was really big into running when I first met her. And so I got into exercise. I lost all that weight, but I fell back immediately on that what I call husband mode, where I thought I already got this girl. I don't have to try anymore. And I just became this lazy bum that didn't take her out, stopped doing the romantic stuff. And so she basically had enough of me 2 years into that relationship, and she didn't end things because she started lining up her male orbiters, and she started acting so bad by the end that she was pushing me away so much that I finally ended things after 4.5 years. And it turned out that at the end there, she was cheating on me, and I didn't find out until a year later or so. But that was a different experience, because after that, I found myself back on the dating circuit again. But this time I was much thinner. I was able to get dates much easier. I just couldn't keep women around because I still had that, that sort of Me Too movement fear. And I was waiting for a written invitation to do anything with these chicks. And so I was always trying to make these chicks my girlfriend, right? So I was just super needy, and I couldn't keep women around more than 2 or 3 dates. And I had this epiphany, like, what am I doing wrong? I'm clearly the common denominator here. The 2 biggest relationships in my adult life failed. I can't keep women around more than 2 or 3 dates. I'm the problem. Like, what am I doing wrong? And so I did just an extensive deep dive in intersexual dynamics, the psychology of attraction. I read a bunch of, like, just name any kind of book out there, I've probably read it. Some of them I've read 25 times just on repeat, so I knew what I was talking about. And so I, more importantly, don't make this mistake again. And from that, I ended up in a men's group where we were all studying this guy named Corey Wayne's book, How to Be a 3% Man. And we were all going out on dates and swapping notes about what worked and what didn't. And from that group, I created my podcast, the Come On Man podcast. And I originally started interviewing other guys from that group. And then from there, it blew up. I started talking to authors. I started talking to some of the biggest names in the space. And I ended up becoming a coach. And now this is what I do full time.
That's pretty cool, dude. I mean, that's a cool origin story. I mean, you got to admit, there's ups, there's downs, there's bottoms, there's tops. I mean, there's a lot going on there. Hey, could you do me a favor? I think your gain might be a little high because I'm getting a little bit of a crackle.
Okay.
I could probably fix it post, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm probably lazy enough at this point that I feel like I can fix it, but
well, let me see here if there's anything I can do about it. When I click in the settings, everything's grayed out now. I guess it's because it's in recording mode, but
I mean, you sound fine now. It's just like certain spots it gets to be a crackle, so I don't know.
Maybe I'll move this back a little bit. How's that?
Yeah, let's do that. Fuck it. That's okay. Where I'm at today. I don't know if you drink. I'm drinking an old fashioned today. I haven't been drinking as much on my show because we're trying not to drink during the week. Because look, I like drinking. Drinking's fun to me. I don't ever drink to excess. I just drink a couple drinks, chill, relax. That's like my thing. But it also is very empty calories that you don't realize. Yeah. I'm pushing 40. I'll be 40. So, you're fine doing that when you're 25, 30, even sometimes 35. But the moment you're past that halfway mark there, you're fucked.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is I'm I don't have a drink on me right now, but I'm on the keto diet, and if you're on keto, you can drink vodka and bourbon and there's zero net carbs, so it actually works out pretty good.
Yeah, dude, I did keto for a while. I'm just a fat kid, and I really love rice and uh, potatoes and shit like that. But I do think the low carb lifestyle is definitely where it's at, because
Yeah.
it's sustainable. Like, you can get away with doing a lot of that. And a lot of people that are on keto tend to, like, when they stop, they would gain it all back. But if you do like if you stop keto and just do low carb, that's like the sweet spot. So once you get to a point where you're comfortable and you feel like you can have a little bit, but I know a ton of people, I mean, that lost tons of weight, and it's a good diet, man. I mean,
Yeah.
you're eating meat, eggs, like, what do you,
Oh,
we,
it's
it's a
great. Yeah,
beautiful thing.
no, that's what I like cheat days for, just maybe once a month or just a couple times a month. You can't do it too much because it kicks you out of ketosis. But yeah, I like rice and pasta and all that kind of stuff too. And it's good to splurge like once a month or something on that, and then just stay in it otherwise.
Yeah, it gives you something that you can look forward to, and I think sometimes people, when they get on a diet, they don't, they try to be so strict, and when you do that, sometimes you burn yourself out. It's just like work, right? You're like, you work, you can burn yourself out. It's the same concept with a diet. I've been on 9 million diets. It's why I'm a chubby kid right now. But well, I also work in an office, and the moment you work in an office, I think I put on, in over 10 years, I gained about 8 pounds a year working in an office.
So before I started doing this full time, I was working remotely, and so I'd been working remotely since 2013, and periodically I used to have to fly back to San Diego to go to the office, and whenever I did, there was always this one guy. He was the director of the quality assurance team. He would always bring in boxes of donuts or rolls or candy or whatever. They always had what we say in the Navy, ghee dunk, right? They had a ghee dunk table with all this crap on it. And every time I went to the office, it was always there. And through the whole time I worked with that guy, he was constantly gaining weight the whole time. And I'm like,
Dude,
dude,
it's awful.
yeah.
I work in insurance, and especially now, our carriers, you got the big ones, right? United Healthcare and Humana and Aetna, and they butter you up. So they'll bring you in. I mean, they'll buy us breakfast, they'll buy us lunch, and it's not healthy shit. They're not buying fruits. I mean, they'll have a little fruit basket maybe, but they're buying sandwiches and chicken fingers and cheesesteaks.
Pizza.
Like,
Yeah.
we had someone bring in fucking cheesesteaks 2 days ago. So it's like, and I grew up in a poor family, dude. So, like, my mentality is, if it's free, I'm going to eat it. That's how it's always. I clean my plate. If it's free, I'm going to eat it. If there's a deal to be had, I'm going to do it. But it's a terrible mentality to have. I need to get better. And I have self-control if it's not there. Like, if I don't have a bag of chips in front of me, I'm good. If the bag of chips is in front of me, I'm probably, especially if it's one I like. If I don't like it, then I'm not going to touch it. But if it's something I enjoy, I'm going to eat half the bag.
I'm the same way, man. So I mentioned I'd lost all the weight when I was dating Red Pill chick. So that was like within the first year of dating her, I finally just had enough of the way I was looking in the mirror. And so I made a promise to myself. It started off as a New Year's resolution. And I was like, look, I'm going to work out no matter what, 5 days a week. And I'm going to work on my diet and stay good with the diet. And a part of that is not buying the crap and having it at home. And the thing is that, the divorce process caused my my wife and I or my ex-wife and I to split the kids up, right? So every other week I would have the kids, and every other week she would have the kids. And so on my weeks, I would only buy stuff like meat and vegetables, and I wouldn't have potatoes or anything like that around the house. And I wouldn't buy a lot of junk food. And it wasn't that I cared that my kids had junk food so much. It was more that if I had the junk food in the house, I was going to eat it. And so I just wouldn't have it there. And my kids were miserable. They're like, oh, we're going over to Dad's house. He never has any food there. And, he only has things to make food. And it's all health food. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't help too that, like, and I don't. Are you comfortable? How old are you, Paul?
I'm 46. I just turned 46.
All right, so we're in that same bracket. I'll be 40, right? So we're in that range, and you have DoorDash now. You have Uber Eats. You have all that shit. It makes it so easy to get food. And yeah, it's a lot more expensive, right? But if I you know, get drunk on a Saturday night and I'm like, man, I'm really hungry, I want French fries. In the past, I would have had to get into a car and drive, and I'd be like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Well, maybe in the early 2000s, I might have made a terrible decision because we did that back then because there wasn't Uber. But yeah, I wouldn't have made that decision. But now I could just hit a button on my phone, and it gets delivered. And it's a blessing and a curse, I think, because I definitely spend way too much money on the delivery apps. But you had mentioned about the dating apps, and that was definitely a question I had for you, because I always say, I mean, me and the wife, we've been together for 14 years, and we're not married, by the way. We're not doing that.
Smart man. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Her mom has been divorced 5 times, babe? Yep. She's behind the green screen. 5 times. My mom's been divorced 3 times. You know, my dad's been divorced once and had some falling out here and there. So our parents around us have just had terrible things, and like we've survived so many marriages. Like, we've been to weddings and then also to re-weddings. Like, we've survived a lot of that stuff. So we just look at each other and we're like, all right, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So every 5 years, I just buy her a new diamond ring. You know, we just make her look like Mr. T, and that's how we live. We don't have kids. We have dogs. And that's kind of the arrangement we have. Maybe in the future we'll change our minds, but we're on the same page. But I thought very much like you in the beginning. It was like, I need to get married. I need to have kids. I need to have a big house. I need a white picket fence. Because that's, in our generation, that was ingrained in us. You have to go to college to be successful. You can't not go to college, right? And all of those paradigms are different now. Everything.
Yeah, they're all incorrect. Yeah, so my philosophy on marriage, it really does come from the red pill praxeological space, which is marriage is a bad deal for men. It's just not a good idea for men. The marriage laws are extremely unfavorable to men. And I experienced that. I went through the meat grinder that is the family court system. So like, I'll never do it again. And but on top of that, it just, to me, it makes very little sense to get Uncle Sam involved in your relationship, because once you get Uncle Sam involved, now Uncle Sam gets to decide how you guys break up, you know, and it's just not a good idea anymore. And it's completely unnecessary. I mean, you're a living proof of it. You guys have a happy relationship. You guys don't need a piece of paper to define it. Right. But I do help men in marriages, specifically guys in dead bedroom situations. And because my idea around that is that a lot of guys didn't get the memo. They didn't get the memo that marriage is a bad deal for men. And just like you and me both, we have this paradigm of we have to get married. So a lot of guys go and get married, and they, you know, things are good for the first 7 years or whatever. And then after that, it starts going downhill. And next thing you know, the sex dries up, and it's a big meme now. Like, everyone's like, oh yeah, you know, I put out on Facebook, what's a relationship without sex? And everyone's like, modern marriage. You know, everyone in the comments says the same thing. It's called marriage. And, but it doesn't have to be that way. And so for those guys, I'm like, look, you already pulled the trigger. It's going to cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney fees and alimony and child support and opportunity costs. You might as well fix it. You might as well turn that thing around. You know, you didn't get married so you don't fix it. That doesn't make sense, right? So I do like to try to help guys in that circumstance, but not all relationships are meant to be saved. And if you can't turn things around, then I don't recommend going for marriage number 2 or 3, because the divorce rate right now is like 50% divorce rate for first-time marriages. And then second and third-time marriages, you start looking at 60%, 70% divorce rate. It's like, and a lot of that is because when guys get married and things aren't working out, instead of working on themselves, they're like, well, if I just replace her, she's the problem. Let me just get a new girl. Everything's going to be fine. Yeah. But the thing is like, you're still the common denominator in your relationships, and you're going to carry that stuff to your next relationship if you don't work on this stuff. And the thing is that you're going to end up in relationships with the same person with just a different face. You know, if you don't realize that there's certain skills that are required to maintain a healthy long-term relationship and keep that attraction going for the long term.
Yeah, and I think the divorce rates are even higher. Like if you're considered I think was it under, I want to say it's under 27, which is technically still an adolescent. I think it's 75% or something ridiculous. It's in the 70s, which is just a lot of people. Now, a lot of people are getting married later now. Like obviously, like I said, the paradigm has changed a lot. You know, when we were younger, it was you get married as I mean, my parents, you know, had me and were married at I think 19 and 18 or 20. I think it was 20 and 18 or 21 and 19. I mean, they were babies. Like when I was that age, I would not have considered getting married at all.
Yeah.
And,
well, that was me. I mean, I got married at 20.
Yeah.
I wasn't even old enough to drink at my wedding reception. You know,
that's just baby, dude. Like
it was a bad idea. Yeah.
But you know, being human's all about making mistakes, you know, and I think learning from that, like, you know, it seems like you learned a lot from a lot of the things you've gone through. But I do want to ask, right? You know, you come from my background where when we first started dating, there was no dating apps, and now that's where we used to make fun of people who used dating apps when we were, you know, dating age, right?
Yeah,
like,
early 2000s. Like, oh, you met him on what was it, AOL?
Plenty
you met
of
him on an
Fish
AOL
shit.
chat. Like, what are you, a loser? Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh, you loser. But you know, obviously, with that change, like, how difficult was that for you? You know, to go from obviously you were in a long-term relationship and then it ended. And before then, it was like you meet a girl at a bar and you bought her a drink. Now you do that, you're a creep, right? So, like, what was that shift like for you?
Well, I mean, it was huge for me because so I a part of the divorce process, my now ex-wife, a part of her exit strategy was she wanted to move us back to Colorado because we both had family here, and so her argument was we should leave California and move closer to family, you know? And I was like, yeah. And I hated California at the time because I was really big into gun rights, and living in California, it's like the worst place to live if you're into gun rights. And so I was like, yeah.
Them in Jersey. Jersey's bad too.
Jersey's bad too. So I was like, yeah, let's get out of this. Let's get out of this place and go back home. And we both have family close. It would be great. And so we moved back here, and I was thinking we were moving back to Colorado. We were going to buy a house out here and just move back here. She was trying to get out, and that was her exit strategy. And she wanted to move closer so she had a better support system when she did, which you know, she was a tactician, you know, and you know, why wouldn't she do that? So I don't fault her for that. But we moved back out here, and we moved in with my parents temporarily because my parents retired out here on the western slope of Colorado. And we moved all of our stuff into their barn, and we were going to go house hunting. And she was just biding time until the new year hit because a new alimony law was kicking in. So she was waiting for that.
That's fucked up, dude. That's fucked up. Smart, but fucked up.
But fucked up. Yeah, it wasn't to my benefit, but definitely to her. So, so the thing was, so now we're stuck out here, right? Because she filed for divorce out here, and we went through the divorce process out here, and now neither of us can leave this area unless we want to give up the kids. And she tried. A year later, after the divorce was finalized, she took me back to court to try to move to Denver, and she wanted sole custody of the kids. She lost that. But we're basically stuck out here in cow pasture, I call it, right? So in cow pasture, especially in the area that we're in, it's largely a retirement area and farmers and ranchers. And so meeting people organically is very difficult, if not impossible. Like if I go to the local supermarket, it's all elderly 60, 70-year-old people. If I go to the bars, it's usually a lot of older drunks. There's no young, dateable, hot chicks out here, right? And so I'm like, but you see them. Like if you go to the elementary school to drop your kids off, like there's hot moms there and stuff. Like where are all the hot moms at? You don't see them around. And that's because all the hot moms either commute to the largest big city, which is Grand Junction or Montrose. Those are the two biggest cities close to me. And even those are small. Like Grand Junction's population is 60,000 people. It's not a big.
I've been there. I've been there. It's nice.
It's nice, but there's not a lot of people. And so, but that's where all the women are. They're either in Grand Junction or Montrose. So I had to get good at online dating. And the thing is that first year, I wasn't good at it. That's why I said I floundered around. And I did meet Red Pill Chick on a dating app, though, eventually. And so the second go around, is when I started studying this stuff, and I found that there's a method to the madness with dating apps. And so a lot of guys complain about dating apps, and they're like, oh, it's something like 80% dudes on the apps. There's only 20% women, and those 20% of women are only going for the top 5% of guys on dating apps. It's a waste of your time, bro. And it's like, well, do you ever stop to think why these women are going for the top 5% of guys on dating apps? Like, do you ever try to think about how to get into that top 5%, or do you just complain about it? Right. And so I'm the kind of guy who's like, well, there's got to be a way. And so I started studying this stuff, and I found out that dating apps really comes down to 4 things. It comes down to your pictures. It comes down to your bio. It comes down to how you open and how you close. And it's basically a marketing strategy and sales. And once you get that down, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. And so, so I got really good at it. And when I started studying this stuff, and I started swapping notes with the guys in that men's group, and we were killing it. We were all having multiple dates. We started dating multiple women. It was like the time of my life. I loved it. And I eventually met my girlfriend that I have now. I call her Nurse Chick on my show. I like to keep these women anonymous, And so
that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
So Nurse Chick and I we've been together for going on 5 years now. We met on Match.com, and we had a great first date. And first date, I met her for coffee, and normally I don't recommend guys meet for coffee because that sort of puts off a friend vibe. And
I've read that.
So I invited her to drinks, and I recommend for guys, always have a plan and always have a go-to place that you take all these women for first dates. Because then you don't have to think about it. You have a plan, and women they don't want to make decisions most of the time. They just want to show up looking hot, right? So a guy who says, hey, you sound like a cool chick. When are you free to get together? Great. Meet me at this place at this time. They're like, oh yeah, that sounds wonderful. Like because most guys, what are they doing? They're going, oh, what do you want to do, honey? Like, right. So it starts off in the dating process. Like, well, what do you like to do? What do you want to do for fun? Okay, let's go do what you want to do. And the thing is that women are like, what? Like, I don't know. I don't know what I like to do. They just sort of want to join your lifestyle. And so when I figured that out, I had like my go-to places. And so I invited Nurse Chick to my go-to place, but she was working graveyard shift, labor and delivery, and she couldn't go out for drinks. So I was like, oh, well, I guess we'll have to go for a coffee then. Meet me at this coffee shop at this time. And so we met up for a coffee date, and we had a good conversation. And then I went in for a kiss, and then I went home because she was supposed to go to work in a couple hours after that. And that was WrestleMania weekend, and I was getting ready to go home and watch WrestleMania. Like, I wasn't going to miss that. So I get home from that date, and I get a call from her like maybe 30 minutes, an hour before WrestleMania starts. And she goes, hey, so I got low census. I don't have to work tonight. What are you up to? And I said, well, I'm getting ready to watch WrestleMania. You're welcome to join me. And she was like, oh, that sounds great. I've never watched WrestleMania before. And so she drove, and I live an hour from Grand Junction. That's where I met her. She drove an hour out here to watch WrestleMania with me. I was like, if I don't put my foot in my mouth, it's a done deal, because a woman's not driving a 2-hour round trip to watch WrestleMania with some stranger she just met, right?
Definitely not.
So I knew she had high interest, and I knew that if I just played my cards right, everything was going to work out. And now fast forward almost 5 years later, we're still together, effortless relationship. I apply everything that I talk about in my books in our relationship, and it's just been the most effortless relationship I've ever had. We've never had a single fight, not a single spat, and everything's just great, and I can't complain.
That's awesome, dude. Now let's talk about the book. I do love talking about the writing process, and I've interviewed a bunch of authors. So I find that every author, we're all content creators, authors, everybody, right?
Yep.
Everyone has their own way of doing things. So obviously, your book, it's got a very interesting title. I'll let you describe where you came up with that. But what was your writing process like? Yeah. And, what inspired you to write it?
So I've actually written 4 books now. So if you want to talk about writing process,
the newest one, right? Which is Forget That Bitch.
Forget That Bitch is the newest one. So it's weird. Like once you've written your first book, other books are a much easier process because you've already gone through, you've already been through it, right? So,
Yep.
so for me, like writing a book now is pretty easy. It's a matter of sitting down, writing out, and sort of brainstorming the logical path I want to take the reader down, and start with a beginning, middle, and end, sort of thing, and just get all the ideas out as much as possible. And so I start with the outline, and then in each outline or each section, right, that ends up becoming chapters. There's certain bullet points I want to hit in each chapter, and that's sort of how I start it. And then it's just a matter of writing to those bullet points. And so it's pretty easy process now. But my first book, which is called Everything I Wish I Knew When I Was 18, that really talks about all the stuff I learned since the divorce, basically. And the biggest chapter in that book is the dating and spinning plates chapter. And I get into dating apps and like the psychology of attraction with women, especially when it comes to dating and stuff. But that book, I started and just started out writing. And then I just was like, nah, I don't want to do this. So I would get like 2 chapters in and just start all over. And I did that like 4 times before I finally figured out the message I wanted to tell. And it was after I read a colleague in my men's space here, the men's podcast space, a guy named Aaron Clary. The guy's written like a dozen books. He sent me a copy of one of his first books called The Bachelor Pad Economics. It's a phenomenal book. And after I read his book and I saw how he outlined it, I was like, this is the kind of book I want to write. And so once I had his idea of how he formatted it, I was like, let me format the book that way, but based on my experiences and all the things that I've learned and stuff like that. And so mine's like a much more condensed version of that. And it's funny, when he read it, he goes, this is kind of like a condensed version of Bachelor Pad Economics. I was like, yeah, there's a reason for that, Clary. Thanks for the idea there. But
well, you know what, man? I mean, content creators, although we do come up with our own spins, a lot of it, we absorb from other great content creators.
Yeah, it's called modeling, right? It's like, I'm not copying what he wrote in his book, but the format behind it was genius. The way he laid it out, I was like, this is exactly how I want to do this. And and I had never written a book before. So I sort of needed that as an idea of what to do. And then my second book, that one I wasn't even really planning on writing. It was a friend of mine who just passed away this year. He was another big guy in the men's podcast space. And he wrote a phenomenal book called A Dominant Masculine Presence. And his name was R.P. Thor, and he wanted to write a whole series, but he developed brain cancer. So the first year I met him, he found out he had brain cancer, and he didn't find out until he was done narrating my first book. So he did the audio narration for my first book. And right after that, he found out he had brain cancer. And so because he couldn't actually write these books the way he wanted to, and he only had a little bit of time left, he asked a bunch of us in the space to write books in this series. He wanted to make an encyclopedia for men that he called The Essential Skills of a Masculine Presence series. So I was like, yeah, that's good. And at that time I was reading a book by Bob Proctor on reprogramming paradigms. And I was like, this would be the perfect foundation for his series, because once you get your mind right, like everything else tends to work out. And so he gave me this idea to write a book on paradigms and how to reprogram your paradigms and stuff like that. And before that, I got NLP certified. So I used a lot of my NLP tools in that book to help men reprogram themselves to have more of a dominant masculine presence in their relationships. And so that one was actually a pretty easy book to write too, because what I did for that one, now we have all these great tools, right? So I just, instead of writing the outline myself, I just said, hey, ChatGPT, give me an outline for a book that is just like, I want to talk about this and this and this and this. And it spat out an outline. And I was like, done. And it was just easy to write to that outline. So now, like in my new books, I have ChatGPT write me out an outline, and then it's just an easy process,
It's amazing what it can do, for especially from an outline perspective. And I think as we as humans begin to like utilize AI more, right? Like the everyday person, not the nerds like me, you, right? As the everyday person starts to use it, it is a great AI is not going to write the perfect thing for you. But it will do is give you a basis, like a baseline of where to start. And I think that's such a great tool because we as people, right? Like I struggle with it. Like I'm like, all right, this is what I want. Like this is what I want to accomplish and do. Where the hell do I start? Just ask it, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but it could be like, here's 10 points of where you should start and how you should end. And you're like, oh, I didn't even think about it. Oh, perfect. And then you can go from there. Like it's going to continue to build on that. I just also I have Audible, so I just bought your book. I always like to support people that I interview because. You know, what would I be if I didn't support the cause? You know what I'm saying? So,
well, I appreciate that. Yeah. You know, what's funny about ChatGPT, the more you use it, the more you start seeing the same patterns, right? And so now, because I do use it quite a bit for different things, I use it for show notes and stuff like that. But when I do show notes, it's just talking points because I want to talk about what I know and my experiences and give guys that. I don't want to just be reading a script that AI wrote, because AI, if you ask AI about relationships, it'll give you the worst relationship advice ever. It's all very blue pill, traditional type. Give girls flowers and chocolates and they'll love you. And it's like, that's what we call a covert contract. That's a bad idea. And so you can't let ChatGPT do all the writing for you and all the thinking for you, but it's good to give you like bullet points. And what I found is ChatGPT has certain patterns. It says certain words. And now you can see a lot of content online where people aren't even creating content anymore. They're just using ChatGPT. And it's like everyone's losing their authenticity. And so it's like, that's kind of a problem I'm seeing. I see it on Twitter, you know, all the Twitter accounts when they have these really cool sayings, like 99% of it's all ChatGPT now. And you can spot it if you use it enough, you know?
Well, if you see that long dash line, I was talking about this today with my boss. I'm like, look, and I work in, part of my job is in our marketing department, and we use AI a lot. And that double dash line that's connected, I don't know what the hell they call it. Yeah, it shows up everywhere. And I always tell them, I'm like, listen, we need to stop using that because I can recognize it now, and more people are going to start recognizing that we're using AI. And it's okay to use AI, but you also want to spin it and make it your own. Yeah. And not just now. Show notes are a different thing. A lot of times I'm just doing that to put it up, or if I'm using AI to transcribe or shit like that, I don't mind that. But if you're using it as like an actual social post or content post, you got to make it your own to a certain degree. And I feel like maybe we're also a little old school because, I mean, dude, when we grew up before smartphones. We grew up before, like, I'm a gamer. If I had to get through a level, I either had to buy the gaming book, like the actual FAQ guide for it, or I had to go online in my computer and go to a GameFAQs website, which came much later, or I just fucking had to do it. Right. There was no now you can just
go on YouTube and just say, how do I beat this level? And you watch some guy do it and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you feel dirty after doing it. You feel a little dirty.
Hey, man, winners find a way to win. That's what I learned from pro wrestling. Okay, like
that's true. That's true. I mean, and look, you know what? I mean, I think, dude, I see some doom and gloom stuff. I saw something the other day. It was a scientist said by 2030. 70% of jobs are going to be gone because AI is just going to be once they get to SGI, right? Super general intelligence, it's going to be able to create its own AIs, and it's going to be so intelligent. It's going to be able to do things that most people that in these now trade jobs probably won't go away much until we really refine AI robots and all that other shit. But a lot of jobs, I'm glad I have an IT degree. I'm glad I didn't go into coding. I'd be fucked.
Yeah, when so before I started doing this full time, I was an IT director, and I was managing a DevOps team, and I was showing these some of the junior DevOps guys how to use Copilot, which is basically ChatGPT. I was showing them how to use Copilot to write out Terraform scripts and stuff like that. And this one guy, we brought him up from desktop support, right? So he's very green to DevOps, and he's looking at that going, dude, like, no one's going to have a job anymore. I go, honestly, the guys that learn how to use this in their job, they're going to have jobs. The guys that resist this and are like, no, screw that. I'm not going to do that. That's not authentic coding, bro. Like they're all going to get, because that's what happens, right? You have to move with the technology. And if you don't, you're left behind. And so the guys that move with it, they're going to do fine. There's going to be other jobs of programming AI, right? Like it's going to create other jobs. And so it's just a matter of adapting, right?
I like to call them AI liaisons because you have to learn how to talk to the AI and get it the output that you want.
Yes.
Anyone can just ask a question, but if you can find a way to speak to AI and get the output that you want, those are the people that are going to excel very well.
Yep.
And I mean, where are we going to be in 5 years? Who fucking knows? But I got to tell you, I've always been a tech person. I'm excited. If my job goes away, it goes away. I mean, who fucking knows, I mean, but that I think comes as you get older. You're just like, you roll with the punches. People these days, I feel like they stress over a lot of shit that you just can't control. And I've gotten to a point in my life, and maybe you feel the same way. It's like, hey, look, if it happens, it happens, I'll get there.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I sort of, a part of my teachings in my coaching practice is letting go of attachment to outcome with things. And I'm not a Buddhist, but Buddha taught that the source of all human suffering is from attachment. And so when you're attached to your career and when that goes away, I mean, as men, a lot of men will unalive themselves because they lost their dream career instead of pivoting and finding something else to do. My dad was kind of like that. When I was a kid, he used to do computer programming with the old punch card systems. And he had a really good job with this company called Mid-Continent. I don't know what, like they went under or something. And when they went under, he got laid off. My dad was one of those guys that just sort of, instead of like hitting the ground running, going, well, I better pivot now, or maybe I should update my skill set. He just went into depression for like 2 years. And my mom was a critical care nurse, and she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So she thought she was done with nursing and she was just going to be a mom now. But my dad lost his job, went into depression, and then couldn't find another job, or didn't try hard enough maybe. And so she was forced to go back into nursing, and she resented him for it. And she still resents him for it. And my brother and I spent the rest of our lives growing up hearing about how she's the breadwinner around here. You know that. I just hope you know that, right? So believe you me, I heard that for the rest of my life about how she was the breadwinner. And it's funny because a lot of guys in my space will, the red pill space will complain about that. They're like, oh, if you lose your job, like she's going to leave you and stuff. Well, my mom didn't leave him, but she did have to step into the role that she felt that he should have been filling, and she resented him for it, and that really hurt their marriage, And so it's a dangerous thing for guys to rest on their laurels, to sort of think everything's fine, and just sort of have this idea that everything's always going to be fine in their career and their jobs. It's like it's not, and you have to be able to adapt and be able to pivot when when bad things happen. But it's
I agree. I agree.
It's not easy. It's easier said than done for some people,
Yeah, and I mean, we all get in our own heads, but I do, as I said earlier, I think what makes us human is not what transgression we hit or go through. It's who we are when we come out of it. Because we all go through shit. Mm-hmm. We all go through fucking shit, right? But it's who you are outside of that. If you didn't learn something from what you just went through, then you kind of deserve what you get. You got to come away with something, right? Because if you just, like you, right? You said, all right, I went through this relationship. I went through another one. I have to be the common denominator, right? I have to look inward to figure out what did I do, and how can I rectify that? And I think we as a species, if we do more of that, which we're a little soft these days, right? It's Little bit of a soft serve ice cream.
People love pointing the finger at other people. They love a scapegoat, and I probably would have been the same way, but when I was in the military, one of my mentors, I have lots of people I like to look at as they were my mentors in life. One of them was one of my recruit division commanders in boot camp. So in the Navy, we don't have drill instructors. We have recruit division commanders. And one of them was this guy named Petty Officer Logan. I'll never forget this guy. At that time, he was a PH-1. He was like 6'5", just, a hulking mass of a man, just intimidating as hell. And I just remember him always talking about just really harping on accountability, holding yourself accountable, and not asking people to do anything that you're not willing to do yourself, and all that kind of stuff. And that was a big influence on me, and just having that sense of self accountability. A lot of people don't have it, and you'll hear it in the men's red pill space that I'm in. Guys are always pointing the fingers at women, going, "Oh, women, they're accountability is their kryptonite, and women don't believe in accountability, and no one ever holds women accountable." And they're always pointing the finger at women. It's like, well, what about you, bro? Like, what are you doing? Like, you never thought to look at how you're showing up in relationships, and maybe the reason why your relationships haven't worked out is because you never developed the skill set required to set the tone and lead that relationship. You ever think about that? Or no, it's all the women's fault. Okay. All right.
I met a lot of people in my life, and I'm not going to name names, where they point the fingers and they don't ever look internally. And I'll be the first person to tell you when I'm wrong, and I'm not perfect. And I know for sure that I got plenty to work on, Oh,
we all do. The work never stops,
It never stops. Now let's end with this, because I think this is important. I have a lot of male listeners, obviously. It's the Drink O'Clock podcast. There's a lot of male listeners. Anyone listening today, fresh breakup, divorce. What is some advice you would give them today, whether it's a young guy or a guy, that's a little bit on the older side or whatever?
You don't want your ex back. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It's going to end the same. It's like reading a book, hoping for a different ending, bro. It's going to end the same. Yep. And that's so when I wrote the book. So forget that bitch. I like to say it that way.
I like it.
Forget that bitch. So the reason why I wrote the book the way I did was because in my whole time studying this stuff, I had a bunch of guys in that original men's group, and I called those guys from the original men's group my 3% brothers. Right? We were all learning how to be 3% men, and the idea of that is that there's only 3% of the world's population of men that actually understands women and the psychology of attraction. And so we were all trying to be 3% men, and there was always guys in that group. The reason why they even got into that group was because they were trying to get their ex back. They were trying to re-attract their ex. And there were some of those guys that wasted years. And there's some guys that I know to this day, 6 years later, that they're still pining over their ex from 6 years ago. And it's like they just never get over it. So the way I wrote that book was explaining it from that point of view of a guy who, he's dumped, he's hurting, he doesn't want to be alone, and maybe he tries the dating circuit, and dating circuit's hard. So now he starts looking at his ex-girlfriend like low-hanging fruit, like, maybe I should try to rekindle things with her. And so the chapter 1 is all about why that's a bad idea. And chapter 2 is all about, okay, so you're not going to listen to me. All right, here are the 7 steps to reattract your ex. And there's a proven process for reattracting your ex. And I break that all down. And then chapter 3 is like, okay, well, now you got her back and it still didn't work out. Now it's time to actually move on. And so then the rest of the book is all about taking time to heal, what that looks like, leveling yourself up, finding a purpose in life again, working on your physicality and losing all the weight and all that kind of stuff. And working on your money, muscles, game, and frame is kind of what we like to talk about in the red pill space. And then now that you're ready to go back out in the dating circuit, now that you've learned how to be alone and enjoy your own company, now you're ready to go back on the dating circuit. Here's how to do it right this time so that you're picking better women, because a big part of the reason why you end up in the wrong relationships is because you pick the wrong people and you settle for people. And so I go through that whole process too. So, and that's just something that we're not taught this stuff. We all sort of just wing it. And otherwise our relationship skills come from watching our parents grow up. And if you grew up and your parents had some kind of dysfunctional relationship, if you grew up and your parents were divorced, you probably experienced some dysfunctional relationship habits, and you probably carry that into your current day, right? Well, that's all of us. And so you have to learn that there's a better way of doing it, a more effective strategy. And so that's where I try to teach guys before they go out dating again, this is what you need to know. And then now you're better prepared for it, so you don't have to deal with this ever again.
Awesome, dude. Love it. Great advice. Plug yourself. Tell us where we can find your services and where we can find your books and all that.
Yeah, so if you go to comeonmanpod.com, you can find all my books there. They're available on Amazon and on Audible. So if you prefer listening to audiobooks, which I do, I'd much rather.
I'm an audiobook guy myself.
Oh man, it's effortless learning. You can listen to it at the gym, riding in the car on your way to work.
I have 2 hours of drive for work every day, so
Perfect.
I'm an audiobook guy.
Yeah,
for sure.
you can knock out some books on the drive to work, right?
Yeah.
So get it there. You can also, if you want to work with me one-on-one, you can find that at comeonmanpod.com too. And then you can also find my podcast. I have new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Damn. Okay. 3 days a week, man. That's tough. That's a tough schedule.
When you do this full time, you got time on your hands, right? So
awesome, dude. Well, look, it was a pleasure having you on. I'm Drink O'Clock Pod on all socials, Drink O'Clock Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. And let's do this again after your next podcast, brother.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
On a stormy night where legends unfold, there's a podcast that's breaking the mold. Raise your voices, raise your glass high. Welcome to the Drink O'Clock Podcast. Let's dive. Oh, grab an old fashioned and join the fray. Raise your spirits, let the music play. From the corner pub to the dance hall floor. Drink O'Clock Podcast, we're ready for more. We're ready for more. With a mix of folklore and rebel cheer here, we'll guide you through tales of whiskey and beer. From Irish shores to lands afar, grab your friends, it's time to raise the bar.